When the funding winter hit the startup ecosystem, India's financial technology or fintech sector wasn't spared either. According to data from Traxon, a market intelligence platform, Indian fintech startups saw funding decline by 47% year-on-year in 2022. From a total funding of $10.7 billion in 2021, fintech funding in India declined to $5.65 billion in 2022. The drop in funding was primarily due to a decline in late-stage funding, which fell from $8.3 billion in 2021 to just $3.7 billion in 2022. This is a dip of 56%, yet India received the third highest funding in the fintech sector, behind the US and the UK. So have things improved for the sector in recent times? The short answer is not quite. While there has been a resurgence of large funding rounds in the space recently, many startups are still struggling to raise capital. But experts remain optimistic. They argue that the sector has fared better than most during this tumultuous period, and investors are cautiously optimistic, albeit more selective with their bets.
So I think the market has become quite complex for many fintechs. I think the year also saw a lot of regulatory pressure and funding drying out. I would say while we saw 5 or 6 of the winners take up a large share in the capital structure, and they were able to raise disproportionately large rounds of upwards of 100 million each. The mid-size fintechs are struggling to raise next rounds. Anyone who's not been able to raise Series A or B is now going to struggle to really raise more money in this market.
I think funding overall has dropped quite a bit. However, fintech sector seem to have fared pretty well. As you observed, there have been about $500 million rounds, and 4 of them are in the fintech space. And that's because I think investors are increasingly focused on companies which can IPO, which have certain scale. So companies which are potentially in and around the 100 million annual revenue run rate with EBITDA, there or about to get there, are attracting large chunks of capital. In comparison, we see other sectors, be it SaaS or e-commerce, still far away. Very few companies are close to the 100 million revenue run rate. And if they are, the gross margins are still lacking.
The year 2023 has brought with it renewed hope for the sector. Fintech startups have managed to raise a total of $962 million year to date. The sector saw the most funding in January, with $200 million plus rounds coming from fintech startups. PhonePe led the charge with a massive $350 million funding round led by General Atlantic. Credit-B, an online marketplace for personal loans, was the other that raised $120 million in a Series D round. The floodgates of fintech funding have since opened. InsurTech startup Insurance Dekho led a huge $150 million Series A round, while PhonePe bagged another $100 million in February. Premji Invest bagged Mintifi, a supply chain financing platform, is another startup that has raised $110 million in Series D funding until now. The month of March also saw Indian fintechs doing well in terms of funding. Startups say fundraising is taking place at 2 extremes, either early-stage startups that offer higher value growth or late-stage companies with sound business models that have scaled well. However, growth-stage companies in the middle find raising capital challenging.
We are now used to regulations, and we understand that the future is bright for us if we are compliant. So this is the end of the Wild West of fintech, is what I would say. We are now approaching an era, we're transitioning into a collaboration. I don't see this as a headwind. I actually see as clarity on how to grow forward the path forward.
Investors, however, remain cautiously optimistic, and growth in the space is expected to continue in the long run, propelled by a large unbanked population and rising mobile phone penetration.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.
I am the blue of the limitless sky. I am the inspiration that led success soar high.
the nation's trusted bank, SBI, the banker to every Indian.